Welcome back to Muppets in Space, a Farscape rewatch podcast on the Incomparable. Tonight we are covering the final two episodes of Season 1, Episode 21, Bone to be Wild, and the finale, Episode 22, Family Ties, Part 1. I'm your host, Eric Scott, and joining me as always, my fellow co-host, some guy I just met while I was floating around in space, Jason Johnson.
Yeah, it's pretty cold out here, so there's not that much time before I become unconscious. We should probably roll on and not hold it up.
Yeah, I only got like a quarter arn for you, so let's get this going. So this is our season one finale episode, and I guess for you 6 or 7 listeners out there, it did take us a while to get here. It's been pretty busy in our personal and professional lives over the last couple weeks, but we made it. We're here. And we actually had a couple other surprises too. It seems that Amazon Prime no longer has Farscape Season 1 available, at least for Prime, for free. Fortunately, we both know a guy and could watch the final 2 episodes of Season 1. Seasons 2 through 4 are still on Prime, so that's good. So we got something to do next time. Apparently this looks like it's happened before, at least according to Google and people's Reddit threads back in 2020 with Season 1. So who knows? It might be back on Prime later, or somewhere else, or not. That's the fun of streaming. What are you going to do?
Yeah, there's an interesting some research to do there on is season 1 like studio owned by something different, or I don't know. It just seems kind of funny that season 1 is the one that seems to have issues. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, because like 2 through 4, it's still there, so it makes no sense to me. But yeah, I mean, who knows how they have it farmed out or scheduled or the rights, or I don't know how this stuff works. And I don't want to know how this stuff works. I got enough problems going on in my life. I don't need to know how that works.
Let's just add one more brick to the load there.
Yeah. All right, so let's jump into the fun here. So season 1, episode 21, Bone to be Wild. We open with kind of an homage to World War II submarine epics like Run Silent, Run Deep. To avoid being scanned by Crais' command carrier, Moya is hiding in an asteroid field behind an asteroid, following their escape from the Gamma base. They've lowered the temperature and power to avoid being scanned. The scan passes by, leaving Moya and her offspring undetected, but Pilot picks up a distress call from the nearby asteroid they're hiding near, revealing an alien female under attack from some unseen creature. Meanwhile, Crais is upset that Moya has still not been found, and he wants to enter the asteroid field to find her. Scorpius pops into Crais' office and suggests that he bombard the area with signals to try to make the offspring reveal itself in panic, figuring that then the mother would not abandon her child either, and they would find them. Crais' Lieutenant Braca asks Crais what they should do, and Crais says his orders stand, and they will change position and try to find them in the asteroid field. Back with our intrepid crew, Zan, Dargo, and Crichton go down to the asteroid, hoping they'll also find charts to help get them out of the asteroid field, because I guess that's the apparent thing all around, is they need charts for everything. Surprisingly, the asteroid has a breathable atmosphere, abundant plant life, and gravity. More on that later. They hear screams and encounter the beast attacking the female and scare the beast off. The female reveals she is called Emily, and she does not want to be left alone. The creature has killed all her family, she says. They return to the transport pod, where they get attacked by the beast who's lying in wait, injuring Dargo severely before getting driven off again. Back on the ship, Pilot tells Aaron that she's the only one he feels he can trust, and tells her that Moya is having problems communicating with her offspring. There is tension between them. He asks Aaron to tell Moya why the Peacekeepers did this to her son, and since she should have more of an idea than anyone else, could she go over to the offspring and try to make him understand? Aaron does, and goes on board the offspring, and mentions what an astounding combination of Peacekeeper and Leviathan technology the baby is. Pilot suggests turning off the child's comm array, since the Peacekeepers may use it to find them. Aaron does find it and sees that it's in passive mode, and figures out the baby is helping her since the panels around her keep lighting up, and she begins talking to the baby. Back on the Peacekeeper command carrier, Scorpius is in Crais' quarters again, playing more mind games with him. Crais says he wants him off the ship, but Scorpius reminds him of all his failures and threatens to take over instead. Back on the asteroid, Zan is trying to heal Dargo, but she needs more plants from outside, so John is about to go off and get some. But weirdly enough, Emily begins to sniff Zan, saying her scent is different and she smells like outside. Zan reveals that Emily is right. She's also a Flora. Ha! We knew it! We predicted this. We suspected this from prior episodes that Zan wasn't, I don't say organic, but wasn't carnivorous or flesh and blood like we are, that she was more like a plant. John can't believe that she's a plant, even though Dargo says, of course, everyone knows Delvians are flora evolved. Apparently flora species are quite common where they are in the universe. Emily detects that the creature is coming, and she runs off after it. Crichton runs after her, and when the creature comes, Zan disappears, camouflaging herself from the creature's view, like her own little personal cloaking device. Dargo's upset with John for allowing Zan to get captured. But Emily reveals she won't be eaten but taken to the beast's hunting ground and killed later. John and Emily go to rescue her, but when they find the area where they think she is, Emily starts getting hungry and attacks John. The creature suddenly appears and knocks down John, grabs his gun, and shoots at Emily as she runs away. The beast tells John he is not the enemy. Back in Peacekeeper World, Crais is angry that Scorpius is undermining him with his bridge officers, saying if his command were under question, then he should have been recalled. Scorpius reminds him point blank that, yeah, you were recalled, and you're guilty of disobeying this order, as well as the murder of Lieutenant Teague. Remember your fun in the Aurora chair last episode, where we revealed all the secrets that you had? Scorpius leaves as Crais is forced to realize that he is no longer the one in control. Aw, poor Crais. Back on the asteroid, the creature, whose name we find out is Bernie, says the atmosphere is thin outside, so he was way too out of breath to say anything to John. Earlier in the pod, he was trying to warn them that Emily is a calcivore. She feeds on bone, or calcium, I guess, and would have eaten John. Bernie is a botanist who led a team on this asteroid, but Emily killed his team, including his mate. Peacekeepers are scanning again, so Aaron has to reduce the offspring's energy signature, but he won't let her. She talks to him and makes him understand that though the Peacekeepers in a way made him, he must trust his mother and trust her, and the offspring reduces power. Back on the asteroid, Bernie makes some of the plants that Zan needs to heal Dargo, using a machine that creates a huge plant from a small sample, basically unminiaturizing the plant that was miniaturized. Bernie and Zan go off to heal Dargo, leaving John to protect the lab. When they're gone, Emily pops up. She wants to talk to John and tells him Bernie brought her ancestors to this asteroid to rid it of all herbivorous life, leaving only the plants. She says she knows she will starve eventually if she remains on the asteroid, as she has no more food, so she'll try to control the hunger if John provides her with a more regular food supply. Back on the offspring, Aaron manages to charge the offspring's cannon in case of an attack and tells Pilot they seem to have an understanding. Pilot says communication between Moya and her offspring is improving. Rygel thinks Aaron should stay on it in case of an attack, but Aaron says she will not drag it into a conflict not of its making. Back on the asteroid, Bernie has healed Dargo, but John returns and reveals Bernie's secret. Dargo and Crichton are upset that sentient beings were used for murdering stinking plants, which upsets Zan, since she is a stinking plant. Dargo's about to throw Bernie out and leave, but he reveals he has charts of the asteroid field. Zan, having a cool head, goes with him to retrieve those charts. Back on the command carrier, Scorpius interrupts Crais during a meal to reveal what he has put in his communication to Peacekeeper Command. He's told them everything Crais has done and says he will see him personally stripped of rank and office. Scorpius reveals he is now taking command of the carrier, and a physical fight ensues. Scorpius displays his physical superiority and overcomes Crais and kind of like tosses him around the room there. John goes to the lab and finds Bernie injured. He says Emily took Zan. John goes after her, but then remembers halfway running through the forest that Zan doesn't have any bones, so why would Emily want to eat Zan? So Bernie was lying, and he returns back to the lab. John confronts Bernie about Zan and finds that she's been miniaturized by Bernie's machine. After a brief fight with Bernie, John restores her, but during the fight, Bernie is caught by the, enlarging or reconstituting laser and gets sliced in half. Emily appears as John and Zan are about to leave, saying she'll die of starvation, so they let her feed on what's left of Bernie until the Peacekeepers come. Back on Moya, the charts will allow them to exit the field. Aaron tells John that the baby is amazing, and Pilot thanks her since Moya and the offspring are now getting along. She says she did it for the good of the ship, and Pilot reveals that Moya would like Aaron to name the child. Back on the asteroid, the Peacekeepers have searched the asteroid and found Emily. Scorpius hugs her, showing compassion, and tells the others, sometimes we must know when to give of ourselves. Just before the episode ends, Emily's head turns red again. She's hungry. Ooh, the end. Some trivia about this episode. The actress who played Emily, Francesca Bueller, is actually Ben Browder's wife, and she apparently played a different character in each of Farscape's 4 seasons. So we'll see her again, but I guess not as Emily, apparently. This episode was nicknamed Monster Girl during production. The cast and crew continued to refer to the episode by that name long after filming was complete. Some of the cave scenes were filmed in a garage at the back of Fox Studios due to overcrowding on the studio floor. I guess they had lots of sets built. The animatronics for Emily took 8 puppeteers to operate, which is kind of crazy because she was basically in a full bodysuit, but okay, cool. Rockne O'Bannon and David Kemper, the creators and main writers and directors of the series, wrote the final 2 episodes together. O'Bannon felt that this episode was a fun diversion before the climax. He continues, the idea for the episode was one that we had way early on and had never quite found a plot for it. So we then decided that this would be the place to put it. The original notion was supposed to be a reverse on James Cameron's Aliens. There you've got a little girl, a sweet little cute thing who you're constantly protecting from the big ugly monster. What we wanted to do was have that sweet cute little girl and she's the monster. He also noted they had a tough time in Australia casting children because they didn't seem to have a very big field of child actors there. O'Bannon noted that the moment that affected him the most emotionally from the first season was when Moya asked Aaron to name her baby. The look on Claudia's face, he says, is so perfect. There's no dialogue, just that look. It hit me in the heart. And finally, G.G. Edgley, who plays Tiana, is finally added to the opening credits, beginning with this episode. So I guess that proves that she's not going anywhere. So she's in the credits. All right, so to kick off our discussion, I just want to throw a call back to last episode and ask, where the heck did Stark go? Is he wandering around Moya somewhere? Because they picked him up from the Gambit base last episode and they all left. Where'd he go?
That's one of the things that I thought was interesting, and I'm glad you mentioned it because honestly, with our hiatus in between these last couple episodes, I forgot that he was even there. And as soon as you said that, I'm like, oh yeah, he was like in the last scene. So, or next to last scene, I guess. Because anyway, he was with them on the ship, right? So, do we have just this whole cast of characters that throughout the run of the show just start hiding in different places around Moya? For the season finale, we just drag them all out, or the series finale, right? I mean, there's a spinoff here of Lost in Space on a Leviathan. I don't know,
Yeah, Lost on Moya, right? Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Land of the
Um,
Lost, yeah, or Leviathan of the Lost, yeah, that's right. Yeah, because I'm like, okay, they might mention something or whatever, but apparently there was a trivia note that I didn't put in just so I could make this little cute joke that they did have some line saying what happened to Stark, but they cut it out. So okay, whatever.
Yeah, which makes you wonder. Is this another one that we'll stick in our back pocket that we may bring back, but we don't have to? I mean, did it not work out? They didn't like the actor. There's all kinds of weird things you could pull out for different things with that. But I feel like they've built themselves to such a huge array of people where we're going. Are they going to come back? Are they going to come back? That it's kind of a funny side note as we go through the show.
And they had him on through 2 episodes, so they must have liked him enough, at least for those two. But we'll see if he shows up later. We got 3 more seasons, as long as we can still watch it on Amazon or somewhere. And I thought it was kind of cute that the 2 alien names were kind of like plays on human names, like Emily, and Bernie, like Brne, Bernie, like the real Bernie, like Bernard Bernie.
Yeah, again, this is one of those cases where me watching it without subtitles on or anything, I just thought that's what they were naming it until we started actually putting stuff down on paper. It's like, oh, it's an alien name, not a human name, because I just thought it was Emily and Bernie the whole show. So what do I know?
Yeah, I always put the subtitles on just because sometimes, like especially with older episodes or TV shows from like 20 years ago, sometimes the sound's not too good or whatever, or my hearing, I'm old now, not that good anymore. So I want to make sure I catch all the dialogue and stuff, so I put the captions on, and yeah, it was, M apostrophe Lee and BR apostrophe NEE. So okay, cute. And it also makes it easier for the actors to say the names too, and not some, long weird name.
Yeah, we're not speaking Klingon here, right?
Yeah, right. And just as a side note, since I've watched at some point past this when I first started watching, and back then when I was watching, John was always carrying like a sidearm with him, which up until I guess these last couple episodes, he really wasn't armed. Whether they didn't want him to have a gun or wanted him to show him evolving, and now realizing this is like a dangerous place, that from here on it looks like he's always got a sidearm with him. And I guess these last couple episodes he's not wearing his ASA flight suit or his kind of Earth-like type clothes. Now he's more wearing clothing of that, I don't say era, like that side of the galaxy or whatever.
Well, even with space laundry, there's only so long that your clothes are going to hold up before you have to replace them. He's been in space a while. I've not, seen anything further than this, so I didn't catch up on the sidearm thing. But without spoiling too much of future conversation about the next episode, he does have his hero speech that he's given to his recorder, and during that, he holsters the sidearm. So I think they're definitely, shooting for a transition in character there, where he's now accepted the role he has on this side of the universe, galaxy.
Yeah, or just after the last 21 episodes of being constantly in danger, attacked, and shot at, that it's time for him to like, okay, now I'm gonna start shooting back again, I guess.
Yeah, we've transitioned a little bit past just a passive scientist role to, okay, I'm going to be an active participant. I've got to be prepared.
And I guess, like I mentioned in the recap, that yeah, they first landed on the asteroid, and I was kind of surprised that it was like plants everywhere, breathable atmosphere, and gravity. They later explained all that, at least the plants and the oxygen part, that Bernie's people had seeded or planted or cultivated, these plants in this asteroid for research and whatever else they're doing. Not quite sure where the gravity came from, but at this point, you kind of have to hand wave this away as just okay, it's a fun episode. Don't try to get bogged down in science details because you're gonna just not have fun if you do that.
Yeah, hand wave is exactly how I approach those kind of things. I mean, gravity's always one of my fun things I like to watch for in any space show. because at a certain point you just kind of have to start ignoring it. Because if you have to stop and think about how there's gravity on each of these spaces where you need people to not float around, it can get tedious. So at a certain point, you're just like, yeah, it's space, future tech, just roll with it. And I think this is one of those cases where they're like, it's an asteroid. Don't think about the fact that it's an asteroid, not a planet. Just kind of go with it. Asteroids are just little planets, right?
Yeah, and yeah, I don't get how gravity works, but yeah, it's like yeah, whatever. Yeah, I mean, at least in like Star Trek, they explain that they have like like gravity plates or something on the under the deck to keep you like acting like gravity, which apparently never ever has a problem and goes offline. But whatever, yeah, don't want to go through either. But,
Yeah, but if you think about it, when do they mention that? I mean, usually it's after some tech people have built a schematic of their own of the ship, and they have to
yeah,
kind of explain to those people how does this work? And it's like, well, it's a spaceship. It's in a different galaxy. Don't worry about it.
yeah, it's the future. They figured it out, so don't worry about it. Just enjoy the show.
Yeah.
And that's what we do. We enjoy the show. And like I've kind of cheered or cackled in the recap that we thought Zan was plant-based a long time ago from hints they've dropped in prior episodes. And this episode, they basically everybody confirms that. It's like, of course, everyone knows that Delvians are plant life. Oh, really? Well, not quite apparently.
Yeah, and this is kind of one of those where part of me goes, as intimate as they are in their adventures and their travel and interactions, you think that this would be obvious, but I've never interacted with a plant-based life form, so as far as like intelligent humanoid, so I guess that's something I can't really judge. I'll be honestly, I got to say that when they started talking about it, the only thing I could have in my brain that I still haven't managed to get out is the mushroom people from Super Mario Brothers movie. So there's there's that. Let's just hope they don't devolve them into mushroom goo.
Yeah, and Zan seems like I guess she eats food, or I guess, or she's been at the dinner table. I don't know if have we ever seen her eating. I have, and I'm not gonna go back and look. But yeah, I mean, I guess if everybody knows that Delvians are plant life, why bring it? Why make a point of mentioning it, right? Because everybody knows it. Just the new guy from across the universe doesn't. But yeah, who cares? It's not important. It's just things everybody knows. And then I guess this episode is basically the kind of the old switcheroo kind of episode. You think one thing, like you think Emily is the victim and Bernie's the monster, especially when you find out later that Bernie's people basically dumped her and her kind onto the asteroid to kill all the animals and didn't bother to come get them when they're done and relocate them or take them somewhere else. Just going to leave them there to die out, basically cannibalize themselves and then die of starvation. They're just disposable people.
It's actually kind of a double switcheroo, right? Because you start out with Bernie being the monster, and then no, he was just misunderstood scientist. He's actually not the monster, and then it's like, well, they actually were the ones who killed off all the life on this planet. That herbivorous. I can't talk.
Yeah.
Herbivore. Yeah, that word that eats plants. The things that eat plants. They killed all those off intentionally, and then just left Emily's. See, I said Emily and not Emily.
Yeah.
Her people there to die out intentionally. And nope, he's actually the villain after all, because from a certain point of view, because he was, they did all that intentionally. So good double fake there.
Yeah, and they're both kind of not really good and not really, well, I guess you call them evil, but not really evil, but yeah, they're both not necessarily good people either. Good stewards of where they're at. So
Yeah, and from Emily's perspective, if she's going to starve to death and she can't really control, it's difficult to control those impulses when she's starving, right? So at a certain point, you kind of wonder, it's not really villain as much as it is survival.
nature survival, right? Yeah.
Right, but then again, she did eat the rest of her people, right? Because that's how she lived so long. So there's no good people in this planet. I think you're right. Our asteroid will just kind of accept what is.
Yeah, it's just a lose-lose proposition here. So, and then of course, Bernie being a botanist, sure he wanted to make Zan part of his collection. I think he even mentions that he's heard of Delvians, but didn't either know they existed or never thought he would find one. And so this is probably like the ultimate prize for him, a sentient plant that apparently he's never met another one like that before.
Yeah. Again, are they common? Are they not common? Yeah, I guess we're still in the uncharted regions or lost in space or wherever the section is, and maybe they're not as familiar with them, although we've ran into other colonies and stuff. So it was surprising for him to consider her hearsay, but yeah, definitely a prize for his collection. It definitely checks out.
Yeah, because all the healing properties of stuff that they have, because it cured Dargo from some, I guess, massive internal injuries he had from the first part of the show. That yeah, I mean, I guess he was saying that I guess he can learn so much from Zan's species or her. I guess later if he like on the way that dissect her or take her whatever, who knows? But yeah, so
Yeah, and that's a good point. Given as often as Dargo and others get hurt, it'd be kind of nice to bottle some of these plant stuff up and take it with them for future medical emergencies.
Yeah, you wonder if they did kind of stock up on some stuff before they left, because they didn't really, you don't know what like time frame of how the peacekeepers are hunting for them and when they have to leave, and I guess when they either told them where they were or somehow they figured out where they were before they left, because obviously at the end they're there and taking Emily with her, with them or whatever. So yeah, who knows? Maybe we'll find out later, maybe not. And then we get a more close-up look, or actually inside look at Moya's baby. I keep wanting to call him by the name we learned next episode, but I don't want to jump ahead. So, but obviously everything's smaller because he's a baby, he's a little guy. But being a hybrid of Peacekeeper and Leviathan, I don't say technology, but whatever you want to call it, he's more military looking. Like the command deck he's on, that Aaron goes on to, is like more military looking and like utilitarian. Like it's like single focus. It's like about war and military looking stuff, which kind of makes me wonder, thinking about, again, not thinking too much about the science, but I am, because that's where my brain goes, that how all this electronic and non-organic stuff get there, right? I'm kind of thinking, or I thought in my own headcanon, that it took like a grown Leviathan and then like built or installed all the non-organic equipment, like wiring, the life support, with the crew quarters and all kind of stuff later. I guess not.
Yeah, that's definitely something that we don't really have a good explanation of, right? I mean, I was kind of in the same boat. I thought that just like the control collar, this was non-original stuff that was installed on Moya to make her a spaceship. Yeah, I guess she technically was a space traveling organism, but all the stuff and systems that she controls that make her a technological ship, I thought were aftermarket, and it seems that no, they're from the factory, and that's an interesting conundrum, because like you say, what happens when it gets bigger, right? Do the systems get bigger? They just space out and more things pop up? I mean, there's a whole exploration they could do, and I wasn't even sure, based on TV show budgets, that we could even get to see the inside of it, because I have no experience with what we find out later. But it'll be interesting to see, and I'd love an actual explanation of what their thought process on where these things come from and how they work from a birth perspective, I guess.
Yeah, because like when it was growing inside Moya, was it like nanotech, or were like the DRDs on Moya doing stuff to make the non-organic stuff show up or grow, or attach to them, or I don't know. And then yeah, like when it grows bigger, like are there does the baby have DRDs with him, like inside him, like Moya does, and are they like maintaining him? And maybe as he grows bigger, they're like, okay, he's gotten 18 feet bigger. Let's make the command deck 18 feet bigger. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a
Yeah.
whole, like I said, I think it's conversation around that to look for. So
Yeah, it's just a fun mental game to kind of play with when, again, it doesn't really matter. You're just supposed to accept it and go on with it. But in the back of your head, you're like, how does this work? But,
well, and like you say, do we get more systems on him as he gets bigger? I mean, he's already got guns to the gills, so to get more, when he gets bigger. It's kind of interesting thought.
yeah, I think it was in this episode or next one that I think Dargo or someone says that basically if he were to shoot the Peacekeeper command carrier, it wouldn't do anything because it's not powerful enough yet. So I'm guessing as he
Mm,
grows older or grows bigger, he'll have more power and they'll get bigger. The gun will be stronger, I'm guessing.
gotcha.
Otherwise, why have this merging of Peacekeeper and Leviathan if it's like, oh, it's just a little pop gun and doesn't do anything? So at some point, it's got to get more powerful, but who knows? And I guess keep it in that theme. I guess, and from what we learned, 20 some episodes, or not 20, like 15 plus episodes ago, Aaron, who's still partially infused with Pilot's DNA way back, that comes back in a good way. Pilot tells her that she's the only one that can get through the child and get it to open up to Moya, because she's both Peacekeeper and Pilot, Peacekeeper and Leviathan kind of bridge, I guess, between those two worlds. So she's the best person to try to get the little guy to like open up and start listening to Mama.
And her mixing of the fact that he's got Peacekeeper stuff mixed in with him, the modifications, does mean that he would identify with her more readily, right? Because she being a Peacekeeper. And kind of mild spoiler for the next episode, we do find out that he doesn't need a pilot. So before that, I was actually expecting her to be, use that DNA to become his pilot, kind of. But it doesn't sound like he needs one at the same integration as Moya. So it'll be interesting to see if that resurfaces, or if they just kind of use that to say that's why we don't have another pilot Muppet that we need on the other ship, right?
Yeah, because otherwise it'd be kind of a short, not season, but short episode. It's like, oh well, we can't control him. He runs away, and oh well.
You only need one Muppet in space, not multiples, I guess. I don't
That's
know.
right.
So.
Yeah, we have Rygel and Pilot. That's enough. We don't need another.
And evidently, Emily takes a good number of people.
And then I guess on the opposite side of the of the Peacekeeper world here, we see more signs that Scorpius is going to be a major player in the show. He's basically all up in Crais' business. He's offering suggestions, quote unquote, to the crew which is, I guess, more like orders when Crais isn't around. And by the end of the episode, he's the boss. He's the captain of the command carrier. And apparently, in that little fight they had in Crais' cabin, apparently, is he called a Scaran? I think they said he's a half Scaran, half Sabatian. Apparently, the half Scaran part makes him really strong because he was tossing Crais around like a rag doll.
They're definitely slow rolling information about him out. Every time he's in an episode, we find out a little bit more. And like you say, now he's a hybrid and definitely has some abilities that we haven't seen from typical Peacekeepers, right? So, Sabatian. It's just kind of an interesting thing for them to continue doling out information as we shift to him being the big bad and Crais becoming less of one, right? He's now losing power minute by minute.
Yeah, because like Scorpius is kind of like your all-in-one villain. Like, he's smart, he's conniving, he's strong. Like, he's got some special senses apparently because he spotted Crichton last time. He's sniffing people and knows things about them. Next episode we'll see he can tell when people are lying or not, or at least some people, or beings, I should say, not people. So yeah, it's kind of nice to see them kind of drop more hints about him and make him become the big bad now, I guess.
And evidently, him being a hybrid doesn't affect his status in the command structure. They don't seem to have any open prejudice about him because they don't have any trouble letting him take over.
Yeah, that's true. It's a good point because before they've mentioned like the purity or like the racial purity of peacekeepers or Sabatians, I guess. So yeah, it's kind of interesting that they let him run around, or either he's got something on everybody, or they're just scared to death of him and just let him do his thing.
Right, but we've seen that on his carrier at least. Crais is not scared to make people disappear and has more control over his people than we seem to see in other Peacekeepers. But this guy handled that neatly.
Yeah, and he seems like not like the I'll kill you commander like Crais was. He's more like reasoning-ish with Crais' subordinates. Maybe that'll change once now he's in command. Maybe he'll eventually have the iron fist kind of thing. But for now, he's like the more sane of the two commanders, I guess, right? So.
Right.
And I guess as we exit the episode here, I kind of liked how Dargo basically gets Emily to back off by letting her know that, hey, if you just don't eat us for a little while longer, if you can do that, and there'll be a whole bunch of new people coming that you can feed on, the Peacekeepers. So, and at the end, sure enough, Scorpius, I guess, takes her with him, I guess, or he says he will, because, he's like, we should be compassionate or whatever. And although he kind of also smells her, so does he know something, or did she fool him somehow? Is that the way he was trying to figure out what she was and think she's fine? So that's why he says we'll take her back with us.
I don't know. I'm sure that'll be one of the first things they cover on the next episode. She'll be right there at the beginning.
Yeah, because now they've taken somebody else off a planet with them, so I'm sure we'll see the next time, right?
Right. I mean,
that's how it works, right?
Pick up right where they left off.
If they're in the final scene of the last episode, they should be in the first scene of the next episode. That's how it should work.
Spoilers. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah. Somehow I think this will be deja vu all over again, but we'll find out.
And that sounds like a good jumping off point to go ahead and step into Season 1, Episode 22, Family Ties, Part 1. We open with Moya still trapped in the asteroid field from last episode, but there's now a bigger problem. Rygel has taken a transport pod and is headed toward Crais' command carrier. The rest of Moya's crew aren't happy. Apparently, His Eminence is out to strike a deal with Scorpius and Crais. That seemed to come out of nowhere, but we'll continue. Crais, meanwhile, wonders why Rygel is on his way to them alone, and Scorpius remarks that perhaps he wants to become part of Crais' collection, referring to the Hynerian trophies in Crais' quarters. Crais thinks it's all just a game to Scorpius, however he denies it, saying he cares a great deal about one thing, the wormhole technology that Crichton holds. Lieutenant Bryka brings in Rygel, who says they want the Leviathan, its gunship offering, and the defector Aaron Sohn, and especially John Crichton. Are they interested? Yep, time to make a deal. Back on Moya, Pilot has plotted a course out of the asteroid field using the charts from Bernie, but Moya refuses to leave her offspring, who cannot starburst. It can't use its weaponry effectively until it's fully grown, and John tells Aaron and Dargo he will not be taken alive by the Peacekeepers. He's been in the Aurora chair, and he will not go back. He asks what would happen if one of them pretends to dock at the command carrier, but at the last second drives the transport pod straight into the bridge. Aaron says it won't cripple their operations, but Crichton asks what would happen if it's loaded with explosives. Back on the carrier, Crichton is now having a full meal, when Scorpius says he could easily put Rygel in the chair, but is told it will not work, and Crais agrees that a Hynerian would die instantly. Scorpius then agrees that he will exchange Rygel's freedom for Crichton, saying the rest is insignificant. However, Rygel wants a ship, a crew, and more. Scorpius says he's lying about why he's there, but Rygel denies it. Scorpius then tells the guards to lock him up, but he says no, Crichton will not be taken on alive. Scorpius says he's telling the truth about that, and asks him if he will help them capture Crichton instead. Back on Moya, Dargo tries to convince Chana to wear chains when the Peacekeepers come, so they think she's a prisoner, but she rejects that. Meanwhile, Zan is whipping up a substance that becomes explosive when mixed with certain items, and she says that she has made a family on Moya and feels it's all coming to an end. John replies that for what it's worth, she is family. Aaron is with Pilot, trying to comfort him since he is sharing Moya's pain. He says that they have grown close in their time together, and her prowler is still on board, so she can leave and not be captured. She tells him that she's not going anywhere, and when she finally has a name for Moya's son, she will give him one. It will bear proudly. It's her honor. John is trying to record a message to his father. Hey, that sounds like something we remember from prior episodes, right? But he can't find the right words for it. When Aaron walks in on him and tells him how lucky he is, because she knows little about her mother and even less about her father. On the carrier, Crais walks in on Rygel, who's having a bath, and says he must discuss Rygel's future. Scorpius has ordered his execution and asks if he really thought he could strike a bargain with a Scaran half-breed. Rygel asks why Crais is telling him this, and he says that they're in similar situations, but he wants to survive. Rygel returns to Moya, and the others fear it's a trap, even though he was not followed. Dargo, Zan, Crichton, and Aaron all point their guns at the door as Rygel hovers in, saying not to shoot. He tells them not to let their reaction to what they will see next include weapons fire, as Crais walks in behind him. Crais then says he asked Rygel for asylum, and then asks to be placed in a cell so that he won't be harmed. Dargo takes exception to his presence and beats on him until he reveals that Dargo was wrongfully imprisoned. Crais knew that Dargo was not guilty of the murder of his wife, with Aaron telling him it was actually her brother, a peacekeeper, who committed the crime, but Crais says he couldn't reverse his conviction. Crichton considers this an easy answer, but Crais counters that they are all proof that life isn't fair. Crichton says if life was fair, Crais would be dead. Rygel tells Zan and China what he saw. It was no act. Scorpius was in control of the command carrier. Rygel recognizes Crais' value, but Zan says he went to sell them out. Rygel replies, "You bet I did, but I didn't." Dargo and Aaron are preparing the explosives when they say they have to come to rely on each other, and she wishes she'd been able to see his son. He tells her he misses him more every day, and she says he has his father's blood, so he's probably just like him. John is watching over Crais, saying he wants a human male-to-male conversation, and this is close enough. Crais says he understands now that John didn't purposely kill his brother. He thought at first it was about his brother, but somewhere along the lines it became about him. Later on, Crais is telling the crew that Scorpius will attack as soon as he detects the transport pod, destroying it once they detect explosives and before it hits. Dargo mentions that there's one thing he values more than anything: Gamic Base. They could ignite the moon's oil surface and destroy it as a distraction, allowing their escape. But someone will have to fly the pod. Crais says it won't work because there's one thing Scorpius values more than anything, and that's Crichton. Dargo volunteers, then China sees John, saying she knows he will go too. He says that that's what Scorpio wants, and she thanks John for saving her life, giving him a goodbye kiss. He says one day she can return the favor and save somebody else's life. Lieutenant Braca tells Scorpius that Peacekeeper Command has deemed Crais irreversibly contaminated. Scorpius is now in full control. Scorpius' orders are then to cripple the Leviathan. If the offspring responds to their signal, bring it in or else destroy it. He says everyone but Crichton is dispensable. Crais and Aaron are on the offspring, and he says it's amazing. All other attempts to breed one have failed, and it must have been because they were in captivity. The offspring could have a pilot, but it doesn't require one as it responds to direct voice commands. Aaron and Crais agree that it should be left out of their conflicts. John says he allows Rygel to have his possessions if he doesn't make it. Rygel says he can be selfish, but please don't hold it against him. China, meanwhile, has cooked everyone's favorite meals as appreciation for all they've done for her. In the meantime, John leaves the message to his father, saying he thinks that his time has come, but he's not afraid. His dad did good. Zan blesses John and Dargo, and they all say their goodbyes. Dargo gives the hollow image of his wife and son to Zan, so she can give it to him, his son. Aaron tells them that if they get it right, the Peacekeepers won't notice them, and she'll be there. The Peacekeepers detect the transport pod, but Scorpius won't change course until they know more information. Dargo and John are in the pod, and Pilot wishes them luck. Initial Peacekeeper scans reveal a Luxon and human on board, so Scorpius changes course and says he wants the prisoners alive. John arms the explosives while Pilot tells Aaron, who's in her prowler, that the offspring is not responding to Moya. She tells him to call it by its name, Talon, which is her father's name. Lieutenant Braca reveals that there are explosives in the pod, and Scorpius says if they ignite the oil surface of the moon, the base will have to be evacuated. Dargo says it's time to go, and John says he loved hanging out with him, giving him his dad's good luck charm. They exit the pod, leaving them drifting in space. Aaron has to get them as Dargo can only survive for 1/4 of an arm without a suit, which he's just kind of free floating there. The transport hits the moon and the surface ignites behind them. Crais has boarded Talon, and Aaron can't get John and Dargo as there are too many prowlers around. Aaron orders Crais to leave, telling him it's wrong to remove the child from his mother, and Crais reminds her, however, that this is exactly what happened to both of them, and tells Aaron that he'll be interested to see how their relationship develops away from the Peacekeepers, on the off chance she manages to survive her current situations and they ever meet again. With that, Talon flies off with Crais back into the asteroid field. The command carrier is moving in on Moya, but no one, including Rygel, wants to leave the others. Moya refuses to go without Talon, so John speaks with her, saying her only chance to rescue her son is to save herself first, and thanks Moya for everything she's done for them. Watched by Dargo, John, and Aaron, Moya then starbursts away, and Dargo falls unconscious. With Aaron unable to rescue them, John and Dargo remain floating in space. To be continued. A little trivia about this episode. The final shot of the season with the burning planet was something David Kemper had in his mind. I wanted to do an episode at the end of the season with Crichton and Dargo floating in space while a planet is burning behind them. I had to fight for it, but we ended up doing it. The extended time allowed the visual effects house enough time to figure out how to achieve the shot. Anthony Simcoe remembers the final moments of the season being filmed, especially the last shot of Dargo's hand letting go of Crichton's good luck charm. They brought down the whole crew, the creature shop, construction, and all of the admin and production, so there were hundreds of people standing around watching us do this last simple shot. There was big applause and champagne. It was a touching moment. Also, in a big curveball, Crais asked for asylum aboard Moya. O'Bannon proudly states, that's, again, something that you would never have seen coming. There were shocks and surprises that were incredibly delicious. It's tough to do, and things like the Crais reversal are why the audience seemed to really appreciate Farscape. When the episode was being filmed, Farscape had not yet been renewed for a second season. O'Bannon recalled, we didn't know we had the second season, but we had been well received, so even if the numbers weren't real high, we were higher than the other stuff on the Sci-Fi Channel, so the word was that we would be back. He continued to point out, obviously the cost factor every season was an issue, so that was always a potential stumbling block, but we did not leave the season knowing we would be back. If anything else, we felt we'd done really good work, and we were really proud of what came out of a lot of time and effort. This was the final episode shot at Fox Studios in Sydney. The stage was required for shooting Star Wars Attack of the Clones. The production moved to an old customs warehouse at Homebush Bay. Also, this episode was John Eccleston's final work as Rygel's puppeteer. Ben Browder and Claudia Black later appeared in a Stargate SG-1 episode of the same name. SG-1 Season 10, Episode 18, Family Ties. Without the Part 1, though, I guess.
Yeah, right.
So, still your first question there. In keeping with my what we said last episode about where'd Stark go, where'd Emily go?
I know. I mean, that was like literally the last sequence of the last episode is, they're hugging Scorpius. He's like, take me with you. Great, we'll take you with her. Okay. It's been a whole hour of watching, or 45 minutes of watching a TV episode. No name drop. They name drop Bernie, but Emily's AWOL, or she's lost on a Peacekeeper ship.
Well, what I picture is there's a spinoff here where all these missing characters are just sitting around drinking coffee together, right? They have like a little 10 forward somewhere on one of the ships, and they're just all kind of hanging out.
Characters in cars having coffee or something. Is that?
Characters in Leviathans, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's something there.
Yeah, it could be a little spin-off. Yeah, a little fun. One of those like
Prowlers would be a better ride though, so I'd actually be up for characters in a Prowler drinking coffee.
Yeah, there you go. And then I guess so. Instead, we start out with Rygel. Basically, I guess you're thinking he's probably pulling like another long con with Scorpius, like he was back in the Flux, that's Doctor Who, the Flax episode with the space pirates, where he kind of were playing them for the whole show. But no, it seems like he was really planning on selling out everybody. So I'm like, what? Is this where we're at now?
Yeah, we've kind of bragged on this show for getting away from the inconsistent character things. We've learned from the past mistake. No, just kidding. We're going to repeat the same mistake. First it was trying to get away from each other and kicking each other off the ship, and this is not quite back to that same level, but at the same time, for an opening of the season finale, it's kind of like, where'd this come from? We could have had some foreshadowing. You could have had him in the background being suspicious, or anything to hint at what's going on, but instead we just get this odd open.
Yeah, and then later, I mean, he flat out admits it. He tells Zan, you bit your blue ass, I did, but I didn't. I'm like, what? So you just basically admitted to de facto treason. Like, you really just sell out the crew so you can get away, and then
which
they kind of
which
like
is something.
let him off the hook, basically.
Yeah, and again, you could make that consistent with the selfish streak that Rygel's shown, but we had nothing in the last couple episodes to show a reason for it. He just, out of nowhere. Oh, by the way, this happened in between these two episodes. So
Yeah, I mean, and he does admit later, like when he and Crichton are talking, and Crichton's like giving him his stuff and basically really pissed and telling him off that he's like, yeah, I can be selfish, but don't hold that against me. I'm like, well, no, I mean, you basically tried to sell us out and get me dissected and killed, so yeah, I do want to take it personally, but
right.
or at least I would if I was in his shoes. But I mean, I guess he's cute and fluffy. I guess you can't be too mad at him for too long. I don't know.
We're stuck together, so we'll just have to get past it.
Yeah, and maybe like the 17th time you sell us out, you'll change your mind and won't do it again. I don't know, whatever, but fine. Yeah, we can nitpick because we love the show, so it just seems out of
Yeah.
character.
Yeah, and that kind of leads to his return, right? Because he comes back and brings Crais with him.
Yeah, so like if you hate me, look, I brought somebody you hate even more. So maybe that was a
That's
way.
one way to
Yeah,
deflect.
yeah, yeah. I know, like, kill me, but look. And
Yeah,
I guess it is, kind of like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? And Rygel and Crais do have something in common now. They're both going to be executed by Scorpius. So I guess in that case, why not work together and get the heck out of there?
yeah. I don't know that. Again, I don't want to make it sound like I didn't enjoy this episode, but this was one of those things where it's like, because I did really enjoy it in the moment. I don't mean I didn't, but as we see at the end, letting Crais wander around the ship and just become part of the crew, probably a bad idea. I mean, we've suffered quite a bit with this guy, and just because he's in a bad spot doesn't mean that we're just going to make him a full crew member. And yet, pretty quickly, I mean, they did initially talk about locking him up and all that, and I guess Crichton was sitting outside his cell, but almost right after that, we just rolled to him being, oh yeah, let him do whatever. We're gonna invite him to our family dinner.
Yeah, and even the fact that Scorpius let because Rygel and Crais didn't escape the command carrier. Scorpius let them go. Like, I guess they sold him a story of maybe we can go convince Crichton to surrender if you don't kill us right now, kill us later once we get Crichton, maybe, and then spare our lives. Maybe, I don't know. And I guess Scorpius figures, yeah, sure, why not? I mean, I know they're out there somewhere. We're gonna find them. I'll kill them anyway, and I'll kill you guys anyway. So yeah, go out there and try and get them back. It'd be less work for me to do later.
Yeah, although I'm not sure what he got by letting Crais go. That was just kind of a weird one to me. I'm not quite sure I followed that point from Scorpius's point of view.
Yeah, unless maybe because Crais has had dealings with him before, maybe in person he can somehow convince Crichton to surrender and to be dissected, and everybody else can leave. I don't know, whatever. Again, we're not going to dwell on too much on that because the rest of the show is pretty good.
Right.
I guess speaking of Crais, it does seem like he's finally had his coming to Jesus moment, I guess, if you want to put it that way. He's now kind of playing nice with people, and he admits that he was wrong. He knows Dargo didn't kill the Peacekeeper, that's why he got there, but he can't do anything about it, so oh well, I sympathize, but can't do anything about it. And with a little talk with Crichton, he finally admits that, yeah, I know you didn't kill my brother intentionally. It's my problem, not your problem.
So again, with all this being said, he definitely should be a trusted crew member at this point with no chance of betrayal. He's seen the error of his ways. He's repented. So yeah, well, like I said, we're gonna have this big family dinner that China made. We'll bring him along and let him, sit down and break bread with us
Yeah,
to keep with the biblical.
right. But hey, he said he was sorry, so sure, open the cell, wander around where you want. You're sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
All good.
Which then kind of makes you in the back of your head when the rest of the episode played out. Was that his goal all along? Was to get there and somehow steal Talon and escape, or did it just kind of evolve as he wanted to get away from Scorpius because he's going to die no matter what? So let me at least get with people that I can try to hang with, manipulate. Obviously, he wasn't going to hang around the crew forever. He wasn't going to become part of their crew because they wouldn't want him anyway, sorry or not. So was his plan this all along, or did this kind of just happen as it evolved?
Yeah. So in other words, to quote another space franchise, curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal.
Right. Who'd have saw that coming? Question mark. Right.
Right. Yeah. No, but to really answer your question there, I'm going to go with, yeah, I think that was the only out I see he had, right? I mean, well, out one, get off the ship from and away from Scorpius, right? But I think from the moment he knew that Talon was out there, so it just seems to me that that'd be the first plan would be just take this ship that's exactly what we wanted anyway, and think of what he can do with that ship once it becomes fully powered. So I think that he got exactly what he wanted.
Yeah, and like they said, it responds to voice commands, so there's no pilot, so he can basically be a one-man crew because I don't know how much he can hold because he's a small little guy, but he'll needs himself, and I guess there's living quarters and food replicator, not replicators, but whatever, food cube dispensers or something like so he can just go off and become his own one-man whatever.
Well, and we still don't have a timeline on how long it takes a Leviathan to get to maturity, right? So it could be in a year. He just has to make it a year, and then he's got the most powerful ship around. So I don't know what that timeline is yet, but yeah, he's sitting pretty. So
Hmm. And it was cool to see them like evolve the plan because usually in episodes or any movies or TV shows, it's like, okay, let's make a plan, and then they cut to the plans being acted out, and everything's happening just like they planned it. There's no differentiation. It's like amazing that it just magically works out. But here they started out with, okay, maybe we take out the command carrier with the kamikaze shuttle, and then it became a better plan with, okay, let's just burn up the Gamma base instead and try and draw Scorpius away to save the base because that's where he has all his research and wormholes and stuff. And then when Crais pointed out, no, he really wants Crichton, so okay, we'll put Crichton on the shuttle to attack the base, and Scorpius will go after them to give Moya time to get away. And we'll leave Aaron out there to grab them because they won't kamikaze and kill themselves. They'll jump out, she'll pick them up, and everybody gets away scot free.
yeah, and I really enjoyed that as well. I think to come up with the closest analogy I can think I've got to it is, I really like heist movies, and I think this is in modern storytelling. This would have been told, maybe flash forward at the beginning and then flashback to before it all happened. There's cool stuff, but you could definitely Ocean's 11 this scenario. But to have a plan that gets worked on and developed throughout the episode is definitely kind of a cool thing to see the characters interacting and working on it.
Yeah, and just because of this is the time when they do like season-ending cliffhangers and stuff to draw you into the next season, it doesn't quite go as planned. It goes like 99% according to plan, or 98% if you want to include Talon leaving, Crais betraying, surprise, inconceivable, and he leaves, and then they're stuck out in space and they can't get to them. So it didn't quite go as planned, but it's almost perfect.
Yeah, and it gives us somewhere to pick up from next time, right? So
Hmm. And then, because they had lots of time, this wasn't like action packed, but they had lots of time to prepare for what they thought was like a suicide mission. So they had lots of good character development, good character interaction, showing how they've grown over the last 21 episodes, right? Like he had like Crichton and Rygel having their little scene, like you can take my stuff, and Rygel's like, well, no, no, I don't want them. No, you can have them. Yeah, I'm selfish, but whatever. And then Vince is like, okay, sure. We got Gianna cooking everybody's favorite meals, so we got yet another giant scene of everybody gorging themselves on 500 pounds worth of food. Gianna's trying to give herself to John. He's like, no, you can kind of like pay it forward, save somebody else like I saved you. So that little nice little cute scene. John recording stuff to his dad, like his final goodbye, and him and Aaron talking about his dad. Like, was it the same? Is he like the same guy that we met, who was the alien in this time, but was his dad like the alien because based off John's memories? That she likes John's dad basically. We had Zan blessing Dargo and John, which they kind of remarked that chicks dig that. I guess I don't know whatever. Yeah, it was a cute whatever. And then Dargo giving the hollow of his wife and son to Zan to give to them someday. So there's kind of like lots of like closure as if they weren't going to see John and Dargo again, and they wouldn't see them again. So it's kind of nice to see how they've bonded together as a family. Like John said that Zan's family right before.
yeah, and I'll add to that list the because this was probably my favorite interaction of the set was the John and Dargo on the ship, right, as they're wrapping up and they're like, "How you feeling?" He's like, "I have to pee,"
Yeah,
and then
right.
when they get ready to go and he gives him the keepsake and he's like, "It's been great hanging out with you." You get some closure on how close they've become too. So that was probably my number 7 on that list. So
Yeah, and how Johnson's like, this has kept me safe all this time, and Dargo's like, has it worked? He's like, so far, or whatever, something like that. Yeah, I'm still here.
he was like, "Good enough for him. That worked."
Yeah, it's like,
Good enough.
sure, all right. Yeah, and like he's holding on to it in his hand while he's out in space. He didn't put it around his neck or anything. He's holding on to it to give you that nice
Yeah, and he
scene
kissed it
of
when he got it, right? So
yeah, to get that nice scene when he finally passes out and he like his hand opens up and the chain drifts away. Which again, space maybe not, but whatever. It's dramatic. It's cool.
I'm sure John has it at the beginning of the next episode because that's how we do it. But,
Yeah,
uh,
right.
but yeah,
Aaron picked that up first before she picked up them. So yeah,
priorities. You got to get the keepsake first.
right.
But yeah, I mean, I think they definitely did a great job of putting a bow on how close the crew become. Given it's like you said, we beat to death. I think the opening episodes of the season where they were all trying to leave each other, right? It's just as soon as anything can happen. Oh, I left you here. I left you here. I left you here. And yeah, we definitely have become family, and that's good. Now the next season can move on from that, and we can go forward. We've got the family ties set. Aha, got to use the title.
Hey, there you go. Yeah, they didn't mention it, so we can name drop it ourselves, right? So,
That's right. I'll just throw that out there.
all right. So before we get into the season wrap up, what did you think about these two episodes?
I think we got a really good season finale. The Bone to be Wild, I had a few bones to pick with. Ha ha ha. No, I mean it was an enjoyable episode, and as a one-off, it was fine. And again, it wasn't that I didn't enjoy it. I think I got a little frustrated with the lack of follow through, like we say with some of the other episodes. We've got characters disappearing. We've got characters from the end of this not disappearing. It makes you wonder how important that episode was. It seemed to be just kind of a throwaway if you look at it, because we could have totally skipped it, other than needing to get the maps from Bernie, which again, didn't we fly into this asteroid, so why do we need a map to fly out? I'm not 100%. I understand charts in this show, but moving past that episode, the second one more than made up for it.
Yeah, like it's an asteroid field. Like it's a finite length or width, depth, whatever you want to call it. So it's like at some point, just keep going that way and away from the peacekeepers are over here. Go the opposite direction, and eventually you'll get out of the asteroid field. Unless the charts have here's where the big ones are, here's where, like, so you can avoid hitting them. But then Moy has sensors to find them too. But whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, you can go slow. I'm
Yeah.
not.
But I mean, it was a nice change of pace, I guess, compared to the prior like action, torture, threat, escape kind of episodes. So they got to at least, well, they're hiding, so they can't go anywhere. But so they'd rather just have a whole episode of them being stuck on a ship, saying like, shh, be quiet, they'll hear us. They at least got to do something.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Maybe if I'd have binged these back to back to back, it would have been more of a breather that we needed. Spaced out like we're watching these, I didn't really feel that. So maybe that was something that happened in production that I just didn't feel.
Yeah, like they need some kind of bridge between the last two kind of serious action kind of things and obviously the big finale cliffhanger action in the final episode. So kind of have they still kind of mix it together. So it's kind of like you had like 3.5 episodes of the same kind of deal, and then you have like a half episode of a little diversion, which we get to learn more stuff. Like we'll say later, like even though things are bad or not, we don't quite like why we're doing this. They at least put nuggets in that make you want to watch it. We got to learn about Zan being a plant, which we proved our theory. More good character development and stuff learning about the Peacekeepers, and Crais is basically getting subverted and losing everything he's worked for. So it was nice to have kind of like a more plot than action, or more development than action, I guess.
That's very true. And like I say, I think maybe my approach to it, maybe it suffers a little bit from being right behind a couple of really strong episodes and then right before the season finale. So it probably was a lose-lose. I don't know that anything you put in that slot's going to hold up as good as the ones before it and after it.
And of course, we have the finale where they're pulling out all the stops. Got the big visual effects splurge of Crichton and Dargo floating in space behind a burning planet backdrop, which looked really cool. We end some plot lines. Crais and Crichton, I guess, burying the hatchet, so to speak. Aaron and Crais, kind of again, not so much her, like basically like, haha, you're stuck in a chair, screw you, I'm out of here. They at least had some kind of follow-up conversation to that, at least, that they kind of had understanding, right? And then we open up, new plot lines. What happened to Talon? Scorpius is now in charge. Where's Stark and Emily?
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious that I really enjoyed this episode. I'm a sucker for season wraps, so this is right up my alley. I'll be straight up and say I did not expect there to be that much of a cliffhanger, even though it was labeled part one. I get that, but I guess a lot of shows, especially if you don't know you're getting renewed, don't usually leave as much out there. And this one surprised me by how much it left floating in space in front of a flaming planet or moon. So, it was great.
Literally floating in space in front of a burning. Yeah.
Literally.
Hey, we paid for that shot. We're gonna use it as much as we can. So. And maybe we'll see it.
Yeah, and
maybe we'll see it at the beginning of next episode. Who knows? I don't know.
Well, that or it's going to disappear and be hanging out with the other guys getting coffee. But
that's right. Yeah. There we go. So we got Stark, Emily, and a burning planetoid hanging out over here somewhere. Don't go over here. Nothing over here. Nothing to see here. All right. So we've made it. 11 episodes for us. 22 episodes total. I guess I can do my little prepared spiel here for my review of season 1.
Good, because then I can just agree with it.
Yeah. Which I guess blows the thing that we're just doing this off the top of our heads. It's all scripted. We just no.
Spoiler alert: we're bad at reading a script.
That's right. As if you haven't figured out by now. So, although we're getting better, as the more we do this, we get better at making fun of and having a good time with this sort of thing. But yeah, so my basic recap or review of season 1 here, at least for me, because I think I mentioned on and off that I've seen somewhere season 2 and beyond is when I started watching it 20 years ago. So I never saw season one, so I never got to see how it started, like how things evolved, like how Crichton got where he got, meeting the crew for the first time, how they became this well-oiled team when I started watching. Because everything when I started watching was on all cylinders. Like, everything was going. It was the comedy, it was the action. They were friends. They would die for each other, all that. So it was great to see how that all evolved because by the end of season one, that's where we are. I mean, this is the template, as I said in prior episodes, for what I remember about Farscape: the comedy, the action, the team building, the occasional "I hate you, I like you," you sold me out, you didn't, whatever. So it's great to see how that built basically episode by episode throughout the whole season. Compared to some other TV series first seasons, this was, I think, pretty solid. You can think of things like the first season of Next Generation, which I mean, obviously everybody's gonna watch it because it's Star Trek, but then they had to build all that camaraderie and all that stuff too, like this. But I think this first season was better than TNG's first season, I think, in that respect. And I guess 22 episodes in, there really weren't that many bad ones, or ones that we were like, this was just a pain to watch. There were a couple, like DNA Mad Scientist, but even in that, you got stuff that has built upon that and come back like multiple times, like Aaron getting infused with Palace DNA in that episode. That was like the only thing we liked about that episode, and that's come back like 4 or 5 times, and been critical to the plot. So it made those bad episodes worth watching, and not just because we have to, because we're watching every episode for the podcast, right?
Right, and like I said at the beginning of your analysis, I agree. Despite some rough spots that I've harped on, there was a lack of consistency with character development in the beginning and things like that. You have to get that initial character camaraderie built, right? We have to get the trust, we have to get the background, we have to get all this stuff, and it takes writers time to settle into a world, and it takes people's time to settle into a role and all that kind of stuff. And I think we've sailed well past that and came up with a great season that, like you said, for a first season was really enjoyable. In this time period, I don't know that there's that many shows that I've enjoyed right off the bat. And usually the ones that I did got canceled, so let's not harp on that too much.
Yeah, right.
So, but yeah, they did great. I think they found a way to make it an enjoyable ride, and I think that's what we were all after.
Yeah, I mean, my entire life of watching sci-fi and fantasy shows is like, oh, this is fantastic, I love it. Oh, one season and gone? No, or half a season they cancel it. So yeah, at least this made it and kept going. So it had time to
Yes.
breathe and grow and get better, and yeah.
Someday I'm going to start the podcast on Drive, the series that what's his name, Mal Reynolds did after Firefly, that made it 3-4 episodes before they canceled it and didn't even show the rest of them. Anyway, um,
Yeah, I think I missed that one. I'm thinking back to my old life, like Automan from the '80s, that kind of stuff. Where I love that. It was their Tron ripoff, and it was great. Lasted like half a season, and never saw it again.
wow. Okay, you got me beat. I didn't go that far back.
I mean, I can go on and on. Street Force. Oh, I can't remember half the stuff that I used to watch that my parents were like, "Why are you watching this?" Or my wife is like, you know, "This is stupid. It's not gonna last a season. Don't say that. It's great." And it's gone. And she's like, "I told you." I'm like, "No." but that's the life of a sci-fi fan, right? Just network TV. It's got to make the ratings and the money, or it's out. And they have mentioned it. Like the budget of these shows is a lot because it's all effects and stuff. And it's you run on the edge every season. So.
And to save a little bit of my cred there, Nathan Fillion was the actor I was looking for in that TV show. So anyway.
So I guess quick rundown of some episodes. I guess kind of like the lowlights, if you want to call it that, of this season. We mentioned DNA Mad Scientist. We both didn't really like that, although we liked the Aaron pilot part. That's about it. The Flax, not to be confused with this season of Doctor Who called The Flux. The Flax with the space pirates and the ship that made no sense logically how it should work that this guy was on about, and it's a bleh, bad show.
And not to be confused with Flux, the awesome card game.
Yeah, right. And then pretty much highlights. I mean, I probably could have listed probably almost every other episode in the series, but obviously, Premiere, the first episode, that's where it all started. So that's a highlight. You get to see how it all began. They've got a secret where we learn about Darger's family and his wife and son. I think also how he got falsely imprisoned too, like how that worked out, and also that Moya's pregnant. That was a pretty major. How often you see a ship that's pregnant, right? That was kind of cool. Then we had Rhapsody in Blue, where we learn more about Zan and her backstory, her people. You kind of see where I'm going with this. Durka Returns, the intro of Chiana, which I always thought she was part of the crew from the beginning, but she wasn't until like halfway through the season. So that was kind of cool. And lots of Rygel character development with him and Durka, his torturer, for 100 and some years.
And that one also has a character that we're waiting on to return, right? Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, right. So Durka, yeah, he might come back again. Who knows? Durka returns. Yeah. A human reaction where wormhole aliens set up this like holodeck with Crichton where he goes home, sort of. So it was like a kind of like a good Earth story of like what would happen if they came home. So that was cool. Lots of good character development because they were really there in the holodeck thing. And plus, we get to learn that the aliens know all about wormholes, so that, I'm sure they'll show up again later, maybe. Right.
This,
Another dangling thread, right? So
wait, this show's about wormholes? No.
yeah, right. Worm what? And then we have obviously the last two before these two episodes, Nerve and the Hidden Memory, their first two-parter, where we see Scorpius for the first time, and if you had watched all the previous episodes, there were tons of callbacks, like tons of characters we saw before, scenes from things, mentionings. It was just like callback heaven, right? And obviously,
and clips.
yeah, and a clip show that was better than any other clip show that other shows Star Trek has done.
Yeah,
Except for the menagerie cage thing, which was probably the best way of using old footage. That was good. But
or the incomparable clip show. It's
that's
good
right.
too.
Yep. But no infinite clip loop on this one though, so that we know of.
Yet.
Yep. Right. And of course, finally, this episode we talked about family ties, the big cliffhanger finale of season one. So plenty of more highlights and lowlights of season one for sure. Anything else to add about anything you like particularly that I didn't mention, or that I pretty much covered all the good ones?
I can't think of anything you didn't just say. So I think we're in good shape. You did your homework, and I applaud.
Okay, thank you very much. Yep. That's what Wikipedia is for. Going through the episode list and going, did I remember anything about that? Okay. All right, so next time, because there will be a next time, whether we watch it on Amazon or somewhere else, or if you're listening to this in the future, wherever it might be. So,
yeah, you may have to ship it from overseas at this point, but it's somewhere out there. I promise.
Somewhere in the world is Farscape Season 2. So we're going to watch Episode 1, Mind the Baby, which is part 2 of this duology, I guess, of the Season 1 finale. And Episode 2, Vitus or Vitus Mortis. I don't speak Latin, so it's either Vitus Mortis or Vitus Mortis. I don't know. Anyway. And I guess since we love playing our guessing game of, 45 minutes of drama based off a couple words of an episode title, Mind the Baby, well, that's probably about Talon, because he disappeared last episode, and assuming he's not like Emily and Stark and the wormhole aliens and Durka and whatever else.
And the burning planet.
Yeah, and the burning planet.
Burning moon.
we'll see him again here sometime. And the fact that we have two of our characters hanging out in the middle of space, but that's not really baby, but yeah.
Yeah, on this one I agree with you. I think this is our big hanging thread, and other than keeping John and Dargo alive, I think that's the big thing we've got to pick up from part one.
Yeah, they'll grab them somehow. They'll get on Boya. They'll escape the asteroid field at some point, and I was gonna say Crais will be chasing them, but no, Scorpius will be chasing them. That's probably where it's going.
But it's a train. You've got Crais, and they're chasing Crais, and Scorpius is chasing them, and
yeah.
Anyway.
And then Vitus or Vitus Mortis, which I translated from the Latin using Google. It came up with like Lives of Death. Cool title. Not a clue. So I guess lives were hanging in the balance in season 1 finale, but this is the second episode, and this isn't part 3, so they probably resolved all those lives in Mind the Baby. So I have no idea what this one's gonna be about.
We're stuck on hanging off a cliff at this point, with that cliffhanger. So I've got no guesses where we'll be by the time we get all that resolved. It's too tough to jump between seasons without knowing what episode 1 of the season looks like.
Yeah, plus sometimes with seasons, characters don't come back, like contractually or whatever happens, they just don't show up. Not
Wait, you tell me Crichton doesn't come back? No.
Yeah, it's all over. Crichton doesn't show up anymore. He's off with Stark and Emily. They're having adventures somewhere else. And
did not see that coming.
Yeah, and he'll show up later for the season finale of season 4. It's like, hey, I'm back. Hey, look, here's everybody we left behind. Yeah.
Is this when he went to go do the Scarscape and came, or Stargate and then came? Anyway, no.
Yeah, right. Hey, look, I brought this big ring with me that it can transport us anywhere in the universe. It's great.
Well, that'd make the show quick, right? That's how we got home.
Yeah, I mean, that's a wormhole too, the Stargate. So, hey, it all comes back together. Maybe the Stargate universe is part of the Farscape universe. You don't know.
Yeah, crossover in the works right there.
That's right.
It's been broader on both sides. Anyway.
Which I won't mention episode 200 of Stargate. If it's called 200, if you can watch it, go see it. They have a fun Farscape kind of parody in that one, which I won't spoil for anybody, but it's really cool. That's just me nerding out. But anyway, okay. So that's your homework. Season 2, episodes 1 and 2. Find it where you can find it. Watch it where you can watch it. And we'll talk about it next time. See you later.